Samastanku more namaskar. I hope you all had a refreshing lunch and are ready for the next session. The post-lunch session is often the true test of our attention. But I am sure today's fascinating topic will keep us all engaged. It is my privilege to welcome you all to this session on the place of traditional Indian technology in contemporary technical education. As India moves towards becoming global knowledge leader under the vision of the National Education Policy 2020, it is important to recognize that innovation is not only about creating something new, but also about rediscovering the timeless wisdom embedded in our traditional knowledge systems. Today's session will help us understand how India's rich technological heritage can inspire modern engineering education and set future generations on innovators. We are privileged to have with us Dr. R. Venkata Raghavan, Assistant Professor, IIT Bhubaneswar, with us today. So, Dr. R. Raghavan is a distinguished academic and researcher specializing in Indian philosophy, Indian knowledge systems, and allied disciplines. He has a rich teaching and research experience across several reputed institutions. He began his academic career as a faculty at the International Institute of Information Technology, Hyderabad. He then served as an assistant professor at the School of Philosophy, Psychology and Scientific Heritage, Chinmay Vishwavidyapith, Ernakulam, followed by his role as an assistant professor at the Center for Indian Knowledge Systems, Chanakya University, Bengaluru. He is currently serving as an assistant professor at IIT Bhubaneswar. Dr. Raghavan has authored numerous research papers published in reputed national and international journals, and his work significantly contributes to the understanding and integration of India's traditional knowledge systems with contemporary education and research. So now I request our esteemed speaker, Dr. R. Venkata Raghavan, to kindly deliver his talk. Sir, please, stage is yours. Thank you, sir.
It's confirmed, no, that other speaker is not. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you for inviting me and for giving me this opportunity. The topic of my talk is, as shown on the slide, the place of traditional Indian technology in contemporary technical education. So, as part of this changing the curriculum, as part of the NEP initiative, in IIT Bhubaneswar, we have introduced a 2-credit course on Indian knowledge tradition. So one of the first questions that I have to tackle in the classroom is, why the hell should I study this? I came to IIT to study BTech in electronics, in electrical, or in mechanic, in civil, etc. Why are you making me study this ancient Indian technology, let us say? So I would like to present some of my ideas as to why or what is the place I think of the traditional Indian technology is in contemporary technical education. Before going on to the topic, I would just like to give the definition of Indian knowledge traditions that I am operating with. So the word Indian in the Indian knowledge tradition does not mean the current political entity that we call as India or Bharat with the capital at New Delhi and things like that. What I mean is a more cultural entity, what we call in academic circle as South Asia. So in the Western world calls it as South Asia, but because we are Indians, we call it India. So it's more of a cultural term rather than a political term. By the word knowledge, I include many kinds of knowledge. I include formal knowledge, informal knowledge. Formal knowledge is the kind of knowledge that we are gathering now in universities, in classrooms, in seminars, conferences, peer-reviewed publication, etc. Whereas informal knowledge means the knowledge that you get from the community. I'm fairly certain that in your house, you have a recipe for indigestion, gas trouble, cold, cough, etc. All those recipes you get from the informal sources that are there in our society. I also include oral as well as written knowledge. A lot of the knowledge that is there in the traditional communities is not given in the written format. It is always oral. So I include that also in this word knowledge. And by the word knowledge, I also mean contemporary as well as historical knowledge. The speakers before me have pointed out that when we say IKS or IKT, we don't mean only scriptures. We mean even the contemporary things that are going on in our country now. So by the word knowledge, I am using historical knowledge. That is the knowledge that we are no longer using. For example, the Aryabhatta number scheme, we are not using anymore. Nobody uses it. Similarly, the various operations that are there in Panini's Ashtadhyayi. Some of them we may not be using them. So, but there may be several others which we are still using, which is what I call as contemporary knowledge. So by the word knowledge, I mean both oral, written, formal, informal, as well as contemporary and historical. And lastly, this word tradition or system. Some people prefer using IKS, some people prefer using IKT. IKS is for system and T is for tradition. I prefer using the word tradition because it connotes continuity. What we say parampara in the native language is it connotes a continuity, and there is a continuity in the tradition that is there in India. And as evidence for that, I would just like to show these two pictures. Many of you may recognize the one on the left hand side. Anyone wants to shout out the answer? What is the image on the left hand side? Yeah, the dancing girl statue and on the right hand side is the Tanjavur bronze. But why have I placed them side by side? The reason is that both of them are separated by around 3000 years. One of them from the northwestern part of India and one of them from the deep south of our country. Geographically, they are separated, and in time also they are separated by around 3000 years. And yet, both of them have been made using the same technique called as the lost wax technique, which was mentioned by one of the previous speakers. So, when I say that there is a continuity, this is one of the evidences that I would like to give for that. And secondly, the word system. Why do some people prefer to use the word system? The reason that they use the word system is because it connotes methodology, systematic. So this knowledge that we have acquired, we have not acquired in a very hodgepodge, like that we have not produced this knowledge. We have produced this knowledge in a very systematic way. By trial and error, we have produced it in this way. So that is why they use the word system. You can use both of them, IKT or IKS, whatever it is that you can use. So keeping all these things in mind, please read the below definition, which has been given by UGC. So Indian knowledge system encompasses all the systematized disciplines, that is the Shastras, of knowledge, which were developed to a high degree of sophistication. So all these traditions were developed to a very high degree of sophistication. It was not a crude bit of knowledge. People used to come from far to collect the Indian steel or to Indian textile or Indian linguistics knowledge or Indian philosophical knowledge. So all of them were developed to a very, very high degree of sophistication. From ancient times and all the traditions as well as practices that the various communities of India, including the tribal communities, have evolved, refined and preserved over generations. So all of these words are very, very important in the sense that we are including the knowledge from all different types of communities. And to give you just one knowledge of these tribal communities, I can give an example of an example given by one of the professors who visited IIT. He told us that he and his wife, who was an anthropologist, they visited a Nilagiri tribe in South India. They visited a tribe in the Nilagiri hills, and they found out that in that tribal, among those tribes, all the people had black hair, irrespective of the age, whether they were young or whether they were old. All of them had very black hair. So they got curious and asked, "How is it that all of you have black hair?" So then the tribal chief told that we make a paste out of some of the herbs that we get over here. We make a paste out of that and we apply it and we take a bath once in a while. That is why our hair is black. So this fellow was shocked. Everyone is dying to know this secret. Can you please teach me how to make this? Then the tribal chief said, "No, this is our community's knowledge. If you want, you buy the paste and go. We will sell as much paste for you as you want, but we will not tell you how to do it." So this is one kind of patent, what is a native kind of a patent that they have. We don't want to give this knowledge to you. So we should be respectful to their rights on their knowledge also. And the other thing that you have to observe that I have highlighted over there is that this knowledge is not static. People have realized that there is something wrong with our knowledge, and they have continuously evolved it, continuously refined it, and they have also preserved it so that the next generation can refine it. So all of these things should be remembered when we introduce the definition of Indian knowledge tradition. So once I have given this definition for this particular audience and this particular university, the question comes, where is technology in Indian knowledge tradition? So if you see, there are currently several frameworks for classifying Indian knowledge tradition. One of the popular framework is this Chatushashti Kala or 64 arts, which is mentioned in Kama Shastra and other works also. You can see among the 64 kalas that are mentioned, I have highlighted in bold some of them which have to do with engineering or to do with technology. So for example, instrumental music, producing dyes, preparation of essences, woodworking, architecture, ability to test gold and silver, metallurgy, weaving, etc. All of them have some or the other engineering or technological element in them. If you take another framework, that is the 18 Shilpa or Sippa that were taught in the Takshashila Educational Hub. This is from the Buddhist sources. We find that among the 18 subjects that were taught in Takshashila, you have some of the branches that we today consider under engineering. So you have once, I'm including instrumental music because there is some amount of physics and construction involved in making musical instruments. That is why I have included it as technology. Painting, mathematics, engineering, sculpture, agriculture, cattle breeding, medicine, archery, and military art. So all of these have some or the other engineering element in them. There is another framework for classifying Indian knowledge tradition, somewhat very famous. It is the Chaturjasa Vidyasthana framework. In that, I will explain to you in a little more detail what are all the 14 Vidyas. But among them, there are some Shastras which have some or the other component of engineering in them. And to these 14 Vidyas, we also add 4 other Vidyas, that is Ayurveda, Gandharva Veda, and Arthashastra as well as Dhanurveda. And in some of them, there is definitely an element of engineering and technology involved. In fact, Arthashastra, if you take the Arthashastra of Kautilya, it is an encyclopedic work. You can always find some or the other elements of any different kinds of engineering in them, though not electronics and things like that, but definitely metallurgy, material sciences, and mining, etc. These things you can definitely find. Now, coming to these 14 Vidyasthanas, what are they? The 4 Veda. There is some technology, but there is very scattered thing, and we don't have very much evidence of that. But there is something scattered in the Veda. But it is in the Vedanga that you find significant inputs to introduce to the students. So, for example, Shiksha, which is phonetics, it is a science of pronunciation. So, when you are now making robots that can speak like human beings, this Shiksha Shastra becomes very important. That is, what is the science of producing sound, how a particular sound syllable must be produced. Then Vyakarana, there is a dedicated team of people like Amba Kulkarni, Malhar Kulkarni, and Viri Chaitanya, etc., who are working on something called as Sanskrit computational linguistics or Paninian linguistics. So, you take the inputs from these Vyakarana Shastra and apply it to, most importantly, natural language processing or NLP. So, exactly what is given in Ashtadhyayi may not be useful in modern languages because that is written for Sanskrit, but the principles that are underlying the Ashtadhyayi, you can definitely take and adapt them to modern languages like English, Hindi, etc. Then Chandas, that is prosody. Someone before me had shown the Meru Prastara. So an elementary binary arithmetic is available in Chandas, and also the rudiments of encryption are also available in one way in the Chanda Shastra. Then Nirupta, not that much. It is a science of etymology. And then in the Kalpa Shastra, many engineering works or things can be extracted out of the Grahya Sutras as well as from the Shulva Sutras. Some of you may know the very famous square on the diagonal theorem or the Pythagorean theorem, which is mentioned in the Kalpa Shastra, in the Shulva Sutras it is mentioned. So these are the things that we can introduce to the student in the class. And finally, Jyotisha, many people translate it as astrology, astronomy, etc. I have chosen to translate it as chronometry, that is the science of calculating time, because that is how the Vedanga defines it, Kala Vidhana Shastram. So, a whole lot of civil engineering, mathematics, geometry, algebra, all of them are included within the Jyotisha itself. And a little bit of physics, not that much, but a little bit of physics is included within the Jyotisha itself. Then a meta-level science that can be introduced to the students so that they can be good engineers is Nyaya Shastra, that is logic and epistemology. So this is the some of the things that we can take from the Chaturjasa Vidyasthana and introduce them to the class in the for our students. Now, when you have presented all of these things, it's still the question, the student is not impressed because they are expecting that they will learn coding and whatnot, etc., AI and whatnot in the engineering class. So I have to explain to them why it is relevant for you people to learn the Indian knowledge tradition. So according to me, there are 4 reasons why everyone should learn the Indian knowledge traditions. To know a little bit about our intellectual history. Firstly, it is about our identity and culture. So if I ask you, who are you? Among the various answers that you will give, you will say that I am an Indian. So what is the meaning of this statement? You should not say, I have Aadhaar card. So that is not what an Indian means, isn't it? You should be able to give a much more informed answer, a little more sophisticated answer to what it means to be an Indian. And to know the intellectual history of our country is one way of answering that question. very well. But when you give this kind of an answer, the student is not impressed. अरे ये सब ideology बात कर रहा है भाई, ये सब नारेबाजी क्यों कर रहा है? You give us some concrete examples why it is important for me to know what an Indian is. So then I have to give some other kind of examples. I will just go to them after explaining the other points. The second reason I have to explain to them is that studying the Indian knowledge tradition can help you fuel innovation. That is where I will spend maximum amount of my time over here. Many of these technologies, many of these artifacts, we can reverse engineer and make our new products. We can which have economical value. So ऐसा खुदा नहीं है, पर खुदा की कसम खुदा से कम नहीं है. Like that they say, no. So you can make money out of fueling the innovative products that you can get from the native technologies and native practices. And even if these three reasons have not impressed you, finally, some personal motivation you can get from studying the Indian knowledge tradition. In IIT Bhubaneswar, if you visit some of the schools, you will find photographs of great scientists stuck on the corridor. I'm sure in your places also it is there. You will have photo of, let us say, Einstein or Newton or Bose or C.V. Raman stuck in the corridor. Why do we do that? We do that because it inspires the students. We also should be like that. Now imagine if somebody from your town or village is there on the wall. How much more proud you will feel. Array, if he can do it, I can also do it. Like that you will feel, right? So when we look at the intellectual tradition of our own country, we feel that, array, we have already done these things. So it is my responsibility to match that kind of an achievement. So it gives a kind of personal motivation to the student, many of whom lose it after coming to college. Especially this happens in IITs. Once the student comes in IITs, that fellow thinks that abhi life set ho gaya. Now there is no need to do anything. So there some extra motivation is required for the student in order to do well. So studying the Indian knowledge tradition is one way of motivating the student. So as I was telling you, why is it important for us to know about our identity and our culture? Well, connecting it to the theme of this event, that is the NEP, the vision statement of NEP very clearly says that it wants to envision or it wants to create an education system rooted in the Indian ethos. Now, how do you create an education system rooted in the Indian ethos if you don't know what that Indian ethos is? Right? So it's important for us as faculty members as well as for you as students to know a little bit about what the Indian ethos means. So this is a straightforward connection to knowing what our Indian intellectual tradition is. The other reason why we must learn about our culture is because it has a direct implication on the technology and our businesses. So for example, here is one example that I have taken from the recently held AI India Summit. This government initiative had three sutras: People Sutra, Progress Sutra and Planet Sutra. So these were the three important themes on which the various events were held. And if you read the People Sutra, the statement of the People Sutra says that it envisions an AI as a force for human progress, respecting cultural diversity, preserving dignity and ensuring inclusion in its design and deployment. Now, they are saying that artificial intelligence must also be made in such a way that it respects the cultural diversity. Now, how will your AI system respect the cultural diversity if you don't know anything about that culture? So even in order to make an AI photograph, let us say, if you are asking some AI engine to generate a photograph of, let us say, some local hero, and that generates a very fair Caucasian looking entity, it means that the AI engine has no knowledge. No one has given it any information about our cultural, how an Indian person looks, right? So the AI that we are building should also be, an element of that AI should also be to know about our culture. So this is one example that I have taken from recently, where even in technology, the knowledge of our culture is important. Coming to businesses, in order to understand why certain businesses fail or succeed, it is important to know the culture of a particular country. Today, we are telling our students that it is not enough if you just study and get grades. You must also be an entrepreneur. Now, in order to be an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, it is important for you to know what the culture of the target audience is. So here I have taken some examples. Some of them are due to my colleague, Dr. Subhankar. So you will see on the top, there is a photograph of a very famous restaurant chain in India. It is there, but it is from America, but they have set up branches in India also, and they have not been doing very well. Can anyone guess what is the name of it? Is there on the slide? Anyone heard of Dunkin' Donuts? This is the franchise called Dunkin' Donuts. So Dunkin' Donuts has not done very well in India. Why? The simple reason is that Indians don't eat sweets for breakfast. That's it. It's as simple. A majority of the Indians don't consume sweets for breakfast. They did not know this when they were setting up their franchise in India. They did not expect this kind of a cultural trait. So that is why their business has not been doing very well. At the bottom, you will see some person taking money for a delivery. This is the innovation which is called cash on delivery. It was introduced by Flipkart. Now, Flipkart has gained sufficient market. But when it was introduced, it already had a very big competitor in the form of Amazon. So in order to play on that competitor, it introduced this new scheme because it knew the Indian psyche that India log jab tak maal haath mein nahi aata hai to paise nahi dega. So they introduced this new feature, cash on delivery, and from there the market it captured, and now we are freely giving our debit card information and those things we are giving. But in order to gain that initial confidence, they have tapped into our Indian mindset, right? Then on the bottom right, you will see Tata Nano. Many case studies have been written as to why the Tata Nano failed. The intention behind the Tata Nano was very good, that we want to make a car which is very, very affordable. But even the great Ratan Tata did not anticipate that in India, car is seen as a status symbol. Why would I buy a car which is being sold as a poor man's car? Means if I buy a Tata Nano, everyone will know I'm poor. So that didn't do well, right? So now maybe more people will buy, I don't know. Because Indians don't see car as something to take you from point A to point B. But this kind of a thinking about the culture was absent in whoever made this product. And on the top, right, you see one of the most fantastic fellows that I have discovered in recent times. His name is John Forbes Watson. The fellow you see over there is John Forbes Watson. And he was noticing a very peculiar problem in the 19th century India. He noticed that in India, you had the cheaper cloth that was coming from the machine-made cloth that was coming from London. Everyone knows that handloom is expensive, whereas machine-made cloth is cheaper. So in India, they had handloom, which was costly, and the machine-made kapda that was coming from Manchester and other places, that was cheap. And yet the Indians were not buying the cheaper cloth. Right? And this fellow discovered that the reason why the Indians are not buying the cloth, even though it is cheaper, is because the designs and the patterns of the cloth are not matching the aesthetic tastes of Indians. So he compiled an 18-volume work called the Manufacturers and the Costumes of India. Textile Manufacturers and Costumes of India, 18-volume work. And in the preface of that work, it is quite clearly mentioned that if you make the cloth using these textile patterns, then you will be able to capture the market. So in order for a business to succeed or fail, you have to know a little bit about the aesthetic tastes of the people, about their mindset, etc. So studying the Indian knowledge tradition has this kind of an impact also. So that was about identity and culture. Now I am going to spend the rest of my talk on this second reason why we must study the Indian knowledge tradition, that is, it can fuel innovation. So there are broadly two ways in which the study of the Indian knowledge tradition can fuel innovation. First of all, it can help us modernize the native products using technology, artificial intelligence, modern tools, internet, etc. Some of those examples include this Koraput coffee. I'm being told that government is taking all sorts of initiative to make this into a kind of global brand or global product. The textiles from this particular region only, Sambalpur region, or the Dokra casting. So these are limited in their market. Using technology, we can take it to a wider audience. You can take it to a more international audience. But what I want to stress on more is the second way in which we can use this Indian knowledge tradition to fuel innovation. That is by reverse engineering some of these technologies. So anyone who has broken a battery to see what is inside a battery, or anyone who has broken a tape recorder to see what is inside a tape recorder, has indulged in something called as reverse engineering. So what is reverse engineering? Here is a definition of reverse engineering. Reverse engineering is defined as an act of creating a set of specifications from a piece of hardware by someone other than the original designers, primarily based on analyzing and dimensioning a specimen or collection of specimens. So what you do is that the product is already available in front of you. So now by analysis, by taking it apart, etc., which is one of the steps, you find out how it was made. So to give you in the same thing in a sort of schematic way, in the traditional form of engineering, we go from requirements to design to implementation. That is how the traditional or forward engineering works. Anyone who has done software engineering will know that in that waterfall model, first thing that we have to do is collect the requirements, and then we design, and then we release the product. Whereas in reverse engineering, exact ulta of that happens. The implementation is already there. The artifact is already there in front of you. By analyzing the artifact, you come to what should be the design features, and from the design features, you go to what could have been the requirements for making this particular product. So this is what reverse engineering is. And by doing reverse engineering, we try to extract broadly two types of specifications. What are those two types of specifications? Functional specifications and dimensional specifications. What is the meaning of functional specification? It describes how the product and its subsets work and how they interact. So if I give you this speaker over here, and if you take it apart, all the components, then you find out, oh, this capacitor does the following role. Okay, so this wire goes here, it does something. So this kind of a analysis is called finding out the functional specification. Once you have found out the functional specification, you go to the dimensional specification. That is establishing the parts dimension, how much of capacitance is required, how much of resistance is required, how much, what is the dimension of the speaker that you should make for this kind of an amplification, etc. What are the materials used in the fabrication and how these materials are to be treated during the manufacture, and what are the various parameters. So these are the two things that you should extract when you do reverse engineering. Just to recap, first of all, you have to understand what is the role of a particular component in that particular product. That is called functional specification. Then you have to find out what is the material from which that component was made or how that component was produced. I will give you examples of each of these so that it will be clearer. Firstly, about functional specification. Functional specification means how the various parts contribute to the whole. And to give this example, I will take one from the world of metallurgy and another from the world of civil engineering. From the world of metallurgy, I take this example. Many of you may know. These are the zinc distillation crucibles that are found in Zawar. When they were initially discovered, people didn't know what they were. So there are some components over here. You see a crucible on the top, and then you see some slab, glass, some terracotta slab on which there are some holes, and then there is a chamber beneath. So these are the three different parts. Now you have to figure out what each part is doing. What is the crucible for? What is the platform for? And why is the bottom chamber for? If you reverse engineer this, you have done something called as functional specification. Extract out the functional specification. Now, after studying them, we know that the top chamber is used for putting in the charge of zinc and with the zinc ore and along with the other whatever material that you use, and charcoal, cow dung, etc. And then the bottom chamber is used for collecting the pure zinc using the process called as downward distillation process. So apart from this, there are other nuances in this also. The crucible that you see over here, people discovered that each of these crucibles has a small hole on the top. They do not understand why this hole is there. Then they discovered some used samples were present over there. They discovered that a straw used to be inserted into this small hole. They did not understand what is the need for this small hole. So part by part, you see how reverse engineering is happening. So first you discovered what these three components do. Then you are discovering further components. Then you are trying to understand what these components do. So the straw used to go inside the crucible, and at the right temperature, the straw used to burn away, leaving out the hole from which the zinc used to come down in the bottom chamber. Interestingly, they tried the same experiment in IIT Gandhinagar team has tried to replicate the same thing. But unfortunately, what has happened is that when the temperature was increased, they found out that the crucible cracked. How is it that these crucibles have not cracked, whereas the crucibles that the IIT Gandhinagar team made cracked? That is because though they have extracted out the functional specification, they have not been able to extract out the dimensional specification. They don't know what is the exact composition that is there of these crucibles so that we can make high temperature resistant crucibles. So I have been told that producing high temperature is not a big task, but sustaining it over a long period of time, which is what this reaction requires, is a challenge. How they have done this is something that we are trying to reverse engineer. So this is one example of reverse engineering from the world of metallurgy. Here is another example of reverse engineering from the world of hydrology, if you want to say. So this is from the southern part of India. I request you all to pay attention to the red box that you see over there. You will be able to see there are many check dams. In this particular photo, there are many check dams. 2 on the bottom or 3 on the bottom, and then 1 is there on the right hand side. Can you spot what is the peculiarity of the thing that is there on the box? What is the peculiarity that you find of the structure that is there inside the red box? Just by visual, you can say that the dams on the bottom are straight, whereas the dam that is there on the right hand side, it is somewhat curved, right? So it's somewhat curved. Now this itself is a problem. Why is it that it is curved, right? So this is one of the oldest surviving dams in the world. It is called the Kallanai Dam, and it is still in operation. Of course, periodic maintenance and repair work has happened, but it is supposed to be constructed by one of the early Chola kings called Karikala Cholan. And the purpose of this dam is very simple. It is to prevent the water of the Kaveri to go into another stream. That's all. We don't have to get into too many complications. The stream that you see on the left hand side is Kaveri. The stream that you see on the right hand side is Kolidam. The engineering problem in front of the hydrological engineers of that time is somehow we have to prevent the water from going from the Kaveri into the Kolidam, because we have to use this water for our irrigation purposes, right? So now there's a very nice painting near the museum about the people going and requesting Karikala Cholan and him drawing the map of the dam and things like that. And then you can see this is how the artist has reconstructed this building of the dam. We have absolutely no evidence how they have built the dam. This is purely a kind of artistic conception about how the Anicut or the check dam may have been built. So they have taken some big boulders, it's an earth dam, and they may have built this kind of a check dam in order to prevent the water of the Kaveri to go into the Kolidam. But it still does not answer the question why that structure is curved like this. Why is it not straight, right? So it so happened that in the early 19th century, a very famous person by the name Sir Arthur Corton. Anyone is from the Andhra region, they will know this name. He is the person who has made the Prakasham garage and things like that. So this Arthur Corton was given the responsibility of repairing this dam, because the dam was not doing the job that it was supposed to do. The water from the Kaveri was continuously going into the Kolidam. So the people south of the Kaveri were not getting water. So the Raja of Tanjavur went and requested the East India Company, please fix this dam. So they deputed Sir Arthur Corton, and he found so many peculiarities about this. One good thing about the British people is that they document everything. So that fellow documented the dam. This is the current photograph. You can still see the curvature. And he found out that the dam has so many peculiar features which we don't find in any construction at that time. First of all, it is curved. It has 2 curves. It is almost like a X. One embankment is taller than the other embankment. You can see one is 19 feet and 6 inches. The other one is 18 feet and 6 inches. Then there is an incline from one side to another side. There is an incline. You can see in the bottom diagram, the check dam goes in sloping from one side to another side. And within the check dam also, it is not a flat check dam. It is a wedge like this. So all of these features were utterly alien to him. He did not understand what these things were. Right? So, to the best of his abilities, he fixed the dam, but it did not solve the problem. Therefore, he had to build another dam, which is today called the Upper Anicut. But now, thanks to one study that has been done in IIT Delhi, the PhD thesis that was published in 2003, we now know that building the Anicut in an oblique way has important consequences for silt deposition. These people somehow, the traditional construction fellows, knew that if you make a dam straight, most of the silt will get deposited on this side. We don't want silt to get deposited. We want the silt to go on the other side. Water has to be on this side. So they discovered that if you make the dam a little bit curved, more of the silt will go. It does not require continuous desilting operation. So this is one study that has been carried out, which we have reverse engineered, at least at a lab scale. What is the science behind making the check dam in a curved kind of a way. So this is another, but we still don't know how they made it. Though we have discovered part of the science behind this curvature, we have not yet discovered how they were able to do this without heavy machinery and things like that. So these are the things that still require us to reverse engineer. We also don't know how they knew it. What is the traditional knowledge that they had, which told them that if you build the anekkad in somewhat curved way, more silt will get deposited on the other side. So this is some of the information that we don't have. Okay, here's another example. This time I'm taking from dimensional specification. Till now I have taken 2 examples of functional specification. This is an example of dimensional specification. That is, what are all the materials that are used in the construction of a particular artifact. So this is a GI tagged item from Kerala. It is called Aranmoola Kannadi. It is called. Though it is called a mirror, it is not actually a mirror. It is a metal alloy. How do you make this alloy? Only a few families in southern Kerala know it. They are not going to tell this to you. They guard it as a traditional secret in their community. But the thing is that there is not much of functional reverse engineering over here. What we have to reverse engineer is the composition. What is the exact composition of the different alloys that they are using, because of which they are able to produce this kind of a smooth, shining surface. The peculiarity of this mirrored finish is that it is a first side reflecting surface. What is the meaning of a first side reflecting surface? Anyone who has done physics in their till their 12th class, they know that light is always reflected from the second surface of the mirror. The first surface is a piece of glass, then there's a silver coating on the back side. The light is refracted and refracted again, and then it is reflected. So if you take a normal piece of glass and if you put a pen, there will be a gap between the pen and the reflection. But if you take this Aranmoola Kannadi and put a pen on that, there will be no gap. It will be a continuous, that the reflection and the object will touch each other. It is these kinds of first side reflecting mirrors that are used in applications like James Webb Telescope, etc., because you don't want the light to get distorted because of reflection. Now, if we can take a sample of this and reverse engineer what is the composition of this, can we make first side reflecting surfaces which have other technical and scientific application? We don't want to replace the artisan, I will come to that later, but we would like to use it for other purposes. We can reverse engineer the composition of this alloy and use it for our own purposes, and let the community practice whatever it is that they are practicing. Here is another example of functional specification, dimensional specification. This is the wood steel. Perhaps my colleague will talk a little more about that. There is not much of functional specification to be extracted out of here, but we would surely like to know how exactly they have produced this high carbon steel without it becoming brittle. Here is another example of dimensional specification. I would like to say this is the famous Shiva Sutras or the Maheshwara Sutras of Panini. I think the next session is on linguistics, so you may learn a little bit more about that. We have understood what is the peculiarity of this arrangement. We know this, but the thing that we don't know is how did he come up with this arrangement. So if we can reverse engineer this, we can have our own application in linguistics and any other field that we have. So if we can reverse engineer the logic or rationale that Panini has used in order to come up with this. So another peculiarity that you will notice over here is the letter H has been repeated 2 times. If you notice Sutra number 5 and Sutra number 14, you will find that H has been repeated twice. Of all the things, how come he repeated H twice? How did he come up with this? Or why did he feel that this arrangement is the most optimal arrangement? We know this is the most optimal arrangement. People have done some studies and they have done it. But how did he come up with that is something that we can, if we can reverse engineer, it will be somewhat profitable to us. Here is another example of reverse engineering from business practices. This one was pointed in the talk by one of the previous speakers, the Dabbawalas. They make very few mistakes. So how is it that they do it without Excel sheets and what is that called? ERP and things like that. How is it that they manage? So that is worth studying. On the top you see that is the Surat diamond industry. How is it that using traditional practices and traditional community ties, they have been replaced, they can become the diamond capital, diamond processing capital of the world, replacing places like Antwerp and other places. On the bottom you will find a very innovative practice. which is what is this called? Cryptocurrency. A very crude form of cryptocurrency that you find over here. This is called, in Hindi they call it the Hatta system, right? They use it in the markets of Pune and other places in order to buy Alfonso mangoes in bulk. So you see the fellow shaking the hand, and there's a towel over that fellow's hand. So inside that towel, they are negotiating the price of my mango that I'm going to sell. What you see, similar thing happens in Tamil Nadu also, in the cattle markets. So if I want to sell my cattle to somebody, I will just shake that fellow's hand and put a towel over it. And if I catch three fingers, it means, let us say 30,000, 2 fingers, 20,000. No, I don't like this deal. Okay, yeah, perfect. So everything is done in the open, and yet it does not require advanced cryptography, etc. All those things. It has the advantage that it prevents speculation, price speculation, so that one person does not get exploited. Unfortunately or fortunately, it is going out of practice, but before it dies down, some of us can study it and find out what its relative merits and demerits are. So this is something that we can reverse engineer into our business practices. Yeah, and just to convince you, unless you say that foreign people are doing, we won't listen. So yes, foreign people are also trying to reverse engineer their technology. So if you find, you will find YouTube videos in which they are trying to reverse engineer Roman concrete. They are trying to reverse engineer Roman aqueducts. How is it that the Roman aqueducts are still functioning? How is it that the Roman roads are still in use, whereas the road that we use now is not useful? So in other cultures also, they are trying to reverse engineer many of their traditional technologies so that they can learn from it. Yeah, so the general strategy of reverse engineering is, it is just 2 steps. First of all, we develop the functional specification until the mechanics of the operation is thoroughly understood. Means, usko part mein karke, one part, what is each part doing, that we have to find out. Secondly, disassemble the remaining assembly and isolate all the parts. The parts are then measured to establish their dimensions. This is the broad strategy that we have to use in order to reverse engineer. But when it comes to Indian knowledge traditions, we run into a problem with this general strategy. What is the problem? Most of our artifacts are protected items. We cannot disassemble them. We cannot simply rip off parts from them without advanced high-level permission, which only some of us can get. So if you take this Konark beams or the iron pillar, very few people in this country may get permission even to touch them. Most of us will have to see it from far, okay, and go away. But this is one problem that we have to tackle. This itself is a very interesting problem for engineers. Can we make portable versions of our advanced tools so that we can take it to the site? So in the place where I sit in IIT Bhubaneswar, 2 rooms next to me, there is one X-ray, some machine. That machine is so specialized that it requires its own air conditioning unit, right? It goes on humming all the time. Now, obviously, you cannot carry this to Delhi or to Dhar or to Konark to find out what are the metallurgical properties of this. So what you do with great permission, you take a small sample from it and you bring it to our lab and you do it. But ulta, is it possible? Can you make a portable version of that equipment and take it over there? So this itself is a small engineering problem that we can present to our students in their final year. This is where another thing that can help is computer-aided reverse engineering. So now computers have taken over almost all aspects of our life. Can we use powerful cameras to recreate the design? Let us say somebody had created such a map of one of the traditional structures. So a 3D map can be made, and using that we can then come to our lab. Once you have created the 3D map, you can then come to our lab and conduct whatever experiments that you can conduct. So this is an interesting problem for computer science engineers, electronics engineers, particularly those who are working on computer vision. This is a very good problem to find whether you can make electronic items which can, in a detailed way, it can make a 3D scan of whatever artifact that we are not able to bring to our labs. The second challenge in reverse engineering is that for most of the artifacts of Indian knowledge traditions, or for many of the artifacts, we don't have a working model. The number one thing that you need for reverse engineering something is that you need a working piece. Supposing you want to reverse engineer an iPhone, you first need an iPhone. You should bring an iPhone from the market, then only you can reverse engineer. But unfortunately, because of the loss of our tradition or because of no archaeological evidence being found, for many of our technologies, we don't have a good sample. We don't have the one functional sample. So there are several such examples. So for example, here is one evidence that was given in 1732. It is recent, I mean, relatively speaking. There's a description of a kind of putty or plaster that was made by taking very, not chemicals, but by using natural items like jaggery, ghee, gingerly oil, etc. So somebody in 1732 has reported that the Indians are making this kind of a mortar, but we don't have any sample of this. Now, if we want to recreate this, there is no way. We cannot do anything because we don't have a sample there. So this is a problem that confronts us in reverse engineering some of our technologies. There is also evidence of reinforced cement over here. So adding jute fibers, I am told that in modern day civil engineering, there is something called fiber reinforced concrete. So what they are doing by adding jute fibers, what today they are using by adding silicon fibers, etc. They are reinforcing using jute fibers. So do we have any good example of this? Only then we can reverse engineer. Otherwise, we have to look for some alternate way. Here is another example, the very famous Vajralepa from the Brihad Samhita of Varahamihira. Varahamihira gives three kinds of Vajralepa. This is the vegetable variant, which uses only vegetable products. He gives another animal variant, which uses some animal products. And the last one he uses is a metal variant. Now, we don't have any artifact where this Vajralepa is found. If we have found it, we could have brought back to our lab and we could have reverse engineered it. Now, at the absence of all of this, we can neither, it is impossible for us, next to impossible for us to extract out the dimensional specification, because the way in which it is written makes it very, very complicated for us to do it via hit and trial method. In fact, many of the things, one of the first problems that you will find is that you will not be able to identify what this particular herb is. For example, one of the herbs that is written is Shamili. Now, you know what it is. So, identifying this itself is a problem. So, this continuous set of problems are facing us when we try to reverse engineer traditional Indian technologies. Here is another problem that we face in reverse engineering Indian technology. There is a formula or a procedure given for tempering gold. When gold is rendered brittle owing to its contamination with lead, it shall be heated with dry cow dung. That's all. The text only says it shall be heated with cow dung. What temperature, what pressure, nothing is mentioned. This is another problem we get in reverse engineering Indian technology. No such specifications are given. When it splits into pieces owing to hardness, it shall be drenched after heating. Heating to what temperature? No, it's not given. Into oil mixed with cow dung. How much oil? How much cow dung? No, nothing of this specification is given. Today, in a manual, you will find to 1 or 2 decimal places, you will find specification as to what components you have to use. But here you find in the Indian text, no specifications at all. So here is where we have to be somewhat innovative and use machine learning and things like that, or simulation, to try to reverse engineer these procedures. Here is another procedure for breaking stone. Varahamihira says that you can use certain procedures in order to soften stone so that it can break easily. The first one is written on the top. It has to be heated. Once again, the same problem. To what temperature? Nothing is being told over there. The second procedure that you see over here is how to harden the chisel. When you are working on a hard surface like granite, the chisel may break. So how to harden the chisel in order so that it does not break? The formula for that or the procedure for that is given. Once again, no specification about how much of each of the ingredients should be there. So we have to now try and be somewhat innovative in trying to reverse engineer these procedures. And in doing so, we can discover something about steel that we have not yet discovered. In doing so, we can discover about iron, which we have not yet discovered. That is the advantage of reverse engineering. Sometimes reverse engineering gives you a totally different output than what you started off with. So that is the beauty of reverse engineering. Okay, so what is the solution for this problem? where we don't have any good one. So first of all, you can use computer simulations. We may not be able to do simulations, but is it possible for us to take the help of computer to run various permutations and combination? If you heat it to 1000 degrees, what happens? If you reheat it to 1050 degrees, what happens? Can we use computer simulations in order to find out what is the dimensional specification? You can look at alternate sources. I will give you an example of looking at alternate sources. If the literary sources is not helping, we have to go to the archaeological sources. If archaeological sources is not helping, we have to go to the living practices. Living practices is also not there. Where do we go? I will just give a small example. Perhaps it will convince you. And the last most difficult alternative is to do trial and error. This is not very economical. We cannot do it. But if we don't want this technology to be lost, we have to do trial and error. And there are people who are doing this trial and error. So for example, if you see a project which is being done in Canada, perhaps it is complete now, it is called the Ayur Yog project, run by a faculty called Dagmar Ujastik. And she is trying to map the Rasashastra works in India, in South Asia. And you can see they have reconstructed a procedure for making artificial pearls by taking fish eyes. So this is one of the procedures written in one of the Rasashastra works. They have experimented with it. There is no evidence that this is how it was done, but by trial and error, they have done it. There is nothing to say that this is how it was done 300 years back or 400 years back, but they have at least made an attempt at trying to reconstruct the procedure. Here's another example of trying to look at alternate sources when archaeological remains and literary sources don't help you. Anyone recognizes what this is? What is it? Anyone knows what this is? If I am showing to the audience in Odisha, there must be some reason, no? I have given one hint. Huh? Sorry? Okay. No, this is the famous ship that has recently gone through the entire world. It is INS Kaundinya. The name of the ship is INS Kaundinya, and it has been commissioned by the Indian Navy as a heritage ship. It is called INS Kaundinya because one person called as Kaundinya is supposed to have gone from this particular region, Odisha region, and started the dynasty in Cambodia or Vietnam, somewhere. Yeah. So it is named after him, INS Kaundinya. And the peculiarity of this ship is that it is made without nails. It is made by stitching technique, by using fiber, natural fiber, in order to tie all the planks together. Now we do have works which describe shipbuilding. Yukti Kalpataru, there is one work by Boja, but only very limited literary sources are available about how the ships looked or how the final product would be. And there is no living sample of Indian traditional ships. All of them have gone. The British completely killed the native shipping industry in the 19th century. So what the engineers who were working on this problem, they looked at a very peculiar source, that is the paintings that are available in Ajanta caves. So there's a description of how the Indian vessels looked like. So this is what I was telling when I said look at alternate sources. When the literary sources is not helping you, when the archaeological source is not helping you, when the living practice is not helping you, try to look at some alternate sources like these cave paintings, inscriptions, testimonial sources from other places, etc. to reconstruct the technology. And from whatever they could reverse engineer, they build up a model, and that model they sent for testing. This is a screen grab of the model being tested in IIT Madras. So they put it to test, and now that ship has successfully sailed through the world and it has come back. So this is one way in which we can reverse engineer when we don't have a good example in front of us, right? So just to summarize my talk for the last 15 minutes or so. So engineering is part and parcel of Indian knowledge tradition, just like linguistics and dance, music, etc. Philosophy. Engineering also is a part and parcel of the Indian knowledge tradition. And reverse engineering is one of the fantastic ways in which engineers can learn new things. So you just give a old battery or a radio to a kid and tell Todo isko. That fellow is more than happy to do it and find out what it is, etc. So many of the institutes also have something called a tinkering lab. So you just go over there and you do whatever you want, create something. So this reverse engineering is a very good way of learning engineering itself. And it can give new ideas for design. So many of the traditional products have design features which are not there in modern technology. We can extract those out. It can also have important consequences for material science. I have given abundant examples for production. As I told you, we don't know how they produced so much quantity of zinc without using industrial apparatus. Operations management, and it also prevents unfair use of traditional techniques. Some of you may know that a few decades ago, two Indian American scientists filed a patent for the medicinal properties of haldi. So then the CSIR had to fight the case and try to get, but they got the patent for neem. So similarly, this unfair use of our traditional techniques, in order to prevent that from happening, we need to reverse engineer many of these technologies so that it is not unfairly sold back to us. Yeah. And it also has many pedagogical implications. I honestly feel that many of you may agree with me that many engineers, after completing BTech, don't stay with engineering. They go to some other place, either to do MBA or something, etc. They go. And I feel, because I have studied BTech and also MA in philosophy, I feel one of the important lacuna in technical education is that we don't give them an appreciation of technology from a historical point of view. We don't teach history of technology. There is no course to any BTech student on the history of engineering, history of mechanical engineering, history of civil engineering, history of electronics engineering, history of physics. There is no such course at all for us. Whereas when we study philosophy, it is taught to us in a historical way. In the first semester, we are taught Plato, Aristotle, then we are taught Descartes, then we are taught etc. Then in the last semester, we are taught Wittgenstein, etc. All these people. So humanities and social science, they have history embedded within their curriculum. Whereas for engineers, history is completely kept out. We don't develop an appreciation for our science because of this reason. So teaching the history of our discipline, no need to teach ye Raja wo tha, uska Rani ye tha. That history is not, at least history of engineering you teach. How did engineering come about, right? You teach the history. They will be much more interested. The engineering will get a human face, I think, if history is taught along with it. So that is the advantage I feel in teaching traditional technology and science. And lastly, in reverse engineering, we must be very careful to respect the artisans. We are not reverse engineering this technology to replace the artisans. They have a very important place in our society. The idea should be to learn and improve our technology and to improve our science rather than to replace the artisan. So with this, I end. If there are any comments or anything, I can take.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful presentation on Indian knowledge tradition and relevance of Indian knowledge tradition in contemporary education. So today's session has reminded us that Indian knowledge tradition is a timeless treasure of wisdom rooted in values, ethics, sustainability, and holistic learning. It inspires us to blend our rich cultural heritage with modern knowledge for betterment of society. I hope today's session has deepened our understanding and encouraged us to explore and preserve this invaluable legacy. So I now invite questions from audience. Please free to ask your questions. Any questions? So, Mike. Yes.
Hello. In the morning, in the keynote speech, we could learn that to call it as Indian, that which be replaced by Bharatiya. So can we replace this system, this Indian knowledge system as Bharatiya knowledge system or Bharatiya knowledge tradition with the kind permission of our Honorable Vice Chairman is available here. If that is the system, then we can introduce in the name and style as Bharatiya knowledge system in our curriculum. That is.
I can say from my side only that the name of the course in IIT is called Introduction to Bharatiya Knowledge Systems.
Right, because as he explained Indian in the morning, that actually give a thought to my mind that why not Bharatiya?
For this syllabus it is introduced in 2023, right now which is going on. But in 2018, in the syllabus, a paper name was EIKT, Indian Knowledge Tradition. But it was a zero credit paper. I don't know, zero credit. There was no BPUD examination. But maybe that is the reason. Nowhere actually it is taught just what I learned. Either 1 hour or something class, generally it is kept in 1 week. No student takes interest. Automatically in 2023 syllabus it is not there. EIKT paper was there, zero credit paper was there.
Hello, sir, namaskar. In our Indian tradition, in business, symbol is the swastik symbol, and the what is the nature of the swastik symbol, that is शुभ लाभ, शुभ आपका हो, लाभ हमारा हो. And as per the study, जैसे कि 500 साल की 1000 साल पहले क्या होता था, 2% प्रॉफिट बिजनेसमैन रखते थे एंड बाकी सारा चीज आगे क्वालिटी कस्टमर को देते थे. क्या वो सेम पॉलिसी आज का बिजनेस वर्ल्ड में हो सकता है क्या, ताकि सारे जनता जो है पब्लिक उसका बेनिफिट ले सकता है, एंड जो कि आपका कॉर्पोरेट स्टाइल ऑफ बिजनेस जो आज का डेट में है वो नहीं होगा, पैरेलल बिजनेस इकोनॉमी हो सकती है.
Fine. I don't have a ready-made solution to this question, but it is left to the individual entrepreneur how much profit that fellow wants to make. But one thing that I can tell is that if it is only one person who is always having to give up his or her profit, eventually that fellow will feel very exploited. So all of us, all the entrepreneurs generally must start doing it, or nobody will do it. So in general, I do agree with you that maybe they can take a shorter percentage of their profit, but this is not something that I can tell. See, the first sutra of Chanakya Sutra is Sukasya Moolam Dharmaha, but the very second sutra is Dharmasya Moolam Arthaha. Without Artha, nothing can happen. So I don't want to prevent people who are making money from making money. Please make money as much as you want, but please give that money to me so that I can have my projects.
Any more questions? Sir.
We are running late, so this is the last question.
Yeah. As you are in academia and also you have seen the engineering, particularly technology side, and also the Indian knowledge tradition. What do you think that what are the basic challenges actually in introducing in Indian knowledge system or Indian knowledge tradition into the current academia or current engineering curriculum?
Well, firstly, it is a very an unorthodox subject, so the students themselves don't want to read it that much. But that is their side of the problem. From our side, we don't have significant number of accessible textbooks and reading material, etc., which the students can take. Yeah, now there are textbooks. The AICT has commissioned one textbook. There are other textbooks also available. Now the work is happening, but this should have happened some 5 years ago. It's happening now. So that is one problem from our side. The third problem is language. Most of the works that are available in Sanskrit. Many of us don't know Sanskrit. And even if I present it in the classroom, the students don't know Sanskrit. Many of them, especially in a place like IIT, they don't even know Devanagari. If I present a Devanagari shloka, it is written in Devanagari, they will say, what is written over here? So we have to transliterate it into Roman and we have to try and give it. And the last thing is this credit, what he was telling about credit. At the end of the day, the students want credit. They don't want to fail. They want high CGPA. And going through subjects like this decreases their CGPA, right? But if you make it 0 credit, they will not come to class, right? So we have to make a balance between these two. And these are some of the global problems that we have. Immediately, what we can try and solve is the textbook. Somehow we have to try and create material which is accessible to them so that they can read and they can prepare it. We should give up this prejudice against exam. ठीक है, तुम एग्जाम के लिए ही पढ़ो, एटलीस्ट उतना तो पढ़ लो, ठीक है, आई विल टीच यू एटलीस्ट फॉर द एग्जाम. You tell them that I will ask you this question, right? 40% of the paper you give, at least at that time you will learn. Okay, so this is just one loose suggestion that I am trying to give, right? But apart from that, there are policy level decisions that are to be taken. And the last problem I can mention is that even if some 5% of the class is interested in the Indian knowledge tradition, they don't have any further course, no further advanced course is there apart from the introductory course. So the faculty from different sciences must take some interest to develop advanced courses. So if you are a civil engineering faculty, apart from the introductory course, I try to have an advanced course in Indian hydrology. Try to have advanced course. So that 5% of the class who is actually interested, they will learn more.
Any more queries? Okay. Thank you all for your active participation. Hope we had a interactive session. And let's warm this appreciation with a big round of applause. Okay. So to express our heartfelt gratitude, now may I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor Ameyaratha Sir to felicitate our esteemed speaker Dr. R. Venkat Raghavan with a token of appreciation. Now, I would also like to request our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, to kindly felicitate Dr. Yaswant Mahanti, the member of Shiksha Sanskriti Uttanyas and the principal of Srinix Engineering College, Balashur. Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Biju Patnaik University of Meteorology, Odisha, I sincerely thank you all for sparing your valuable time and sparing your wisdom with us. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me expressing our appreciation with a big round of applause. With this, we conclude the session. We will have a break for tea and snacks now. Kindly reassemble at the new library building near canteen for the next session. And for your kind information, for the circuit branch, all of you gather at the ground floor, the new library building near canteen. And for the circuit branch, the first floor, fun and girl. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, all of you.